Hold up, before this starts, I don't want nothing too scary, okay? We gotta keep it at a minimum base level. But look, story number 1.
I told my friends what I'm about to tell you, and they urged me to share it here.
This never goes well.
It happened back in December, about a week before Christmas. I'm a 32-year-old guy, currently using my GI Bill to go to college in a city in one of the mountain time zone states. I'm so busy with school and work, so I don't have time to go out and socialize often. So I have to rely on a lot of the apps to go on dates. I matched with this really cute girl around my age, and we had a good conversation, and then we scheduled a date. It was at a bar restaurant, not far for either of us to drive, so it was easy. She was very pretty in person, and we got along great.
Yo, Logan, what's good, bruh? Logan, what's up, bruh?
In our conversation, I found out that she worked in a non-cop role at the police station, like a receptionist essentially. I also learned she had a roommate, whom she said was out of town for the holidays. She added that she hated being alone because she had a crazy ex-boyfriend who stalked her. I was a little uneasy at that, and I told her as much. And she said he's harmless, so I kinda let it go.
Nope, her boyfriend's
We
gonna
had a
kill
few
him.
more drinks, and we were there for about another hour. And at her suggestion, we said that we should go back to her place. We went to her house, and she walked up and just opened the door. She didn't unlock it. It was already open, which I found very odd because she said she had a stalker, that her roommate was gone. She started feeding her cat, and as she was doing that, I saw a bowl of cereal on the kitchen counter. I touched it, and it was still cold, like it hadn't been there for a while. The cereal wasn't soggy either. I asked her whose it was, and she hesitated and said she ate it as a snack before heading to the bar. But it just didn't make sense.
GG's.
Before I could say anything, she just kissed me and put her arms around me seductively.
Oh my gosh, that's what did I tell you guys? Women are the problem. Women can take control of you, and I know because my friend gets to know women. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is how I know.
Said for me to take her to a room. We started fooling around, and I went to close the curtains, and she told me to leave them open.
Type of Dorito chick.
A few minutes later, maybe 5, we were in bed, and my back was to the window, and she let out a huge gasp. A scared gasp. Her eyes were out the window. I turned around and saw someone in a hoodie, and they took off. I heard the steps running on her back deck. I immediately jumped up and ran out to make sure her doors were locked. And of course, the front door wasn't. I ran to it and locked it, and right when I did, the door started banging. I went to open it because I was gonna fuck the dude up, or at least try to, and she told me to just go back to bed with her. I screamed at her.
Who is this woman, the devil?
She told me he does this and goes away. And I asked her, "You know this is your ex?" And she said yeah, and to not worry about it. At this point, he started banging on the side of the house on the other end, and she didn't seem at all scared. She kept trying to get me to go back to her bed. I didn't want to call the cops because for all I know, this dude was a cop, or she'd know the cops that showed up who would take her side. I also couldn't just leave because my car was at the bar, and I was terrified. At this point, I started calling her out for the door not being locked, the cereal, and I openly called her a liar. She couldn't come up with any logical answers, and I had no idea what I was into. I shouldn't have done this, but my fight or flight was pretty much kicked in, and I told her, if this is a robbery or some kind of setup, I promise I'll kill you both. I'm not a hard ass or anything, but my fear told me to let her know that no matter what it was, they'd have a fight on their hands. My thoughts of what were going to happen to me were all over the place. I ordered an Uber off my phone and didn't tell her. I just kept arguing with her and asking her what was going on, hoping to just keep her talking and in the room. I stayed right next to the door so I could leave ASAP. Luckily, I never got my pants off, and my jacket and shoes were right by the door. So I was able to get dressed. The Uber showed up, and without saying anything, I just opened the door and ran out there as fast as I could. I looked back at the door, and she was just standing there. It's only been a little over a month, but I honestly have no idea what the fuck I got into. I don't believe the story of just a girl with a crazy ex based off of the factors I told you. It feels like either a robbery or some weird fetishized cuck thing. I don't know. Definitely something I'm very mad at myself for. I mean, I'm a 9-year Navy vet, and allowed myself to get into a situation like that.
9-year
I reported her account on the Uber ride back to the bar. And I told the bartender as well about what happened, just in case they saw her in there ever again. If I remember correctly, this happened in January or February 2024.
Is this the same?
I was visiting family in southern France, and I didn't want to...
I don't know if I really like that. No climax. No. The climax was the dude knocking on the door. It wasn't that best, but we're gonna try the second one, okay?
I want to stay at this.
It was alright,
even if
6
they
out of
don't,
10.
for personal reasons that I won't share here. Note that I visit them quite often and usually last minute, so I would never book the same place. And I would sometimes book a hotel room, which was more expensive but better for me, as I don't necessarily want to socialize with the host. Even when I would book Airbnbs, I would always search for flats or studio flats, and not a room in the flat/house where other people live, as I want to be on my own. So this is an important criterion for me. So I booked this Airbnb within walking distance to where my family members stay, and it looks very nice on paper. I think it was marketed as a house or ground floor flat, with access to a yard and a garden. It was probably one of those cheaper options. I don't remember for sure, but I wasn't going there for leisure or planning to have a very nice place for myself, to have enjoyable holidays, if that makes sense. So I really wanted something for convenience and wouldn't pay extra for any kind of luxury. There were not a lot of reviews, but the few ones were pretty positive. So I go to that place with my suitcase, waiting in front of the house. I contact the landlord, who should give me the keys, but he's late. I spent at least 1 hour waiting outside, and I'm trying to be patient, realizing at least the neighborhood is pretty nice and seems safe. Even if I need to walk through areas that are slightly dodgy to get there, where my relatives stay.
First mistake.
The landlord finally arrives. He seems like a fairly good man and apologizes profusely, saying he was in another town visiting his cousin or friends, and time flew by. First red flag. He says they were drinking and didn't have time to sober up, so he had to speed on the highway on his motorbike while being tipsy or drunk. He stops and asks me half-jokingly,
Half
say that in my review.
Excuse me?
I get a bit serious and tell him he shouldn't be drinking and driving, but he says he really didn't want to make me wait further. I tell him I won't flag that in my review. Spoiler alert, I will, but I didn't want to start off on the wrong foot. This guy is nice otherwise and seems trustworthy, very chatty and open to socializing, and frankly, I was just happy I could finally get in and drop my stuff. The second red flag is when he tells me I will be living in a small flat adjacent to the bigger house he lives in, but I shouldn't worry because I would have my own place, own bathroom, own kitchen, etc. I didn't like that too much, but I actually think it might be good because I am not super comfortable being on my own in a ground floor accommodation, knowing anyone can get into the yard and access the front door. I guess you could say I'm paranoid. So knowing that someone I quote-unquote know is close by in case something happens gives me a sense of safety.
Like boyfriend and girlfriend, yo?
But I was wrong. He shows me around. It all seems okay. It's pretty old, but as I said, I wasn't looking for a luxury stay. The part where I would stay is on a lower level than street level. Not exactly like a basement because there is access to a garden, but I need to walk down a set of stairs outside and get into the flat through the backyard. This shows mostly when I'm in the bedroom,
this is scary.
as I see through the windows that is clearly at a lower level. Next red or rather yellow flag is when he shows me a door close to the bedroom, which is the connecting door between my part and his house. I was kind of expecting that, but thought he might need to at least cross the yard or access through the front door, since my part of the house. He says his door stays closed and it's locked anyway. Not as a warning for me, not to try to open it, but more like, you'll notice there is the door. It's useless for you. And what's beyond it is not part of what you're renting. We chat a little bit. Too long for my taste, because I was tired and also still annoyed at his lateness, and I wasn't in the mood to socialize. He gives me his phone number because he said the Airbnb chat feature isn't that good.
Single person,
that it's easier to use WhatsApp. And then he leaves.
All these people
I start to settle down, open my suitcase, and get changed before leaving to visit the family. I then go back to the place in the evening and decide to have a shower. If I remember correctly, what I'm saying next happened before I took a shower, because I remember locking the bathroom door, which I never do when I know I'm on my own, and I recall being quite anxious when taking the shower.
Oh no.
Seconds later, before I get the chance to answer, or even understand where the noise comes from, I hear keys turning in a lock and a door opening. As you might have guessed, it's the connecting door next to the bedroom. The guy enters and says he can't find his phone and that he might have left it downstairs. I'm a bit shocked, probably because if he had come 10 minutes later, I would have probably been naked, ready to take a shower or maybe walking around in a towel, since I'm supposedly alone. I know it might sound like I'm just being a pussy, but keep in mind I'm a relatively young woman, alone in a house with a man in his 40s or 50s, who has control over when he can get into my place at any time. I stay polite and try to tell him that no, I haven't seen his phone. I would have noticed. There's literally nothing except my open suitcase on a couch in the bedroom. He still gets in, speaking a lot, and it's very fast while I'm sitting there, not fully realizing what's happening and not having a chance to tell him to leave. He looks around the flat and obviously doesn't find the phone. Then he says sorry and probably asks if everything is fine, if I had dinner or something like that, and then he leaves again. I'm really wondering if I should stay or not, since I know you get refunded only if you cancel 2 nights in advance. I just thought I would lose the money for the night that has already started because it was already after 11 p.m. and the following one, knowing I had booked at least 4 nights. I really needed to take a shower, but questioning if I should, I tried to see if there were available hotel rooms.
My setup.
It was already too late to book one, or they were already fully booked. I decided to take my shower real quick, wondering if he could hear the shower and deciding that he forgot something else to get in again. Nothing bad happens. I then go back to the bedroom, get dressed as fast as I can just in case, sit down and think. I decide that I will just stay for the night, and I'll probably be less paranoid in the morning if I'm still alive. That's when I notice the chairs in the bedroom. There are 2, and one of them has ropes tied around the armrests. The chairs are in good shape, and the rope is definitely not there to keep the armrest fixed to the chair, as they are just loose. To this day, I have no idea why they were there.
Oh my god!
I still decide I should sleep there for the night, and try to use a chair to block the door handle in the bedroom, like in the movies.
Sorry ending, bro.
But guys, this only works in the movies. I try with both chairs, trying to pile them up, even trying to use the ropes one way or another. The handle can still go down enough to open the door easily. I think that at least if I leave them in front of the door, I'll hear if someone tries to open it. But the door opens the other way, and in any case, I didn't know what I'd do even if the noise woke me up. Again, I'm clearly paranoid and anxious, but living alone abroad, my motto is to never ever take risks for my own safety, as I'm usually the only one who can save myself, so it's better to avoid any tricky situation. Doesn't mean I never go out, but I wouldn't get drunk around people I don't trust, and I would take a cab if I feel unsafe going home on my own after midnight. I now live in a city that's rather safe, but has had too many bad encounters. Unfortunately, nothing unusual for most women, not to be careful. So from an external point of view, this is a story about someone booking an Airbnb with good reviews, with a nice and friendly landlord who is just overly open because he likes to meet people, and the ropes are just a detail. But for my anxious and paranoid self, it's the premise for a horror story or thriller, where you shout out the stupid and trusting victim to get away ASAP before the guy comes back. So I decided to call my brother, who came to pick me up around midnight, for me to spend the rest of my stay at his place.
So lame. Oh my gosh, I'm leaving this. I don't wanna watch anything from that. What? I'm doing one more.
You might know Harbor Freight for affordability. What you might not know?
OZEMPIC?
When my husband and I got married, we were both in good shape, but as I got older, my health started to decline. We were only in our 50s, and over the years, I would continually gain weight. I just didn't have the same motivation to go back to the gym and start dieting. This is where the divide between us really started to widen. When we were both overweight and chronically exhausted, neither of us really cared if our intimacy was good or bad. Unfortunately, it only took a few months for my husband to get his six-pack and his libido back, while I was still the same fat, lazy piece of dead weight. I knew he wasn't enjoying himself in bed, as he would keep his eyes closed and avoid touching me with his hands. Eventually, it came to the point that my husband was fed up. He screamed at me one night that I needed to lose weight because he was sick of trying to better himself while stuck with someone who didn't care.
That's okay.
I knew in some sense that he was right, but it didn't make me want to change. It just made me feel more resigned to my condition. Without me knowing about it, my husband scheduled me for a doctor's appointment, then drove me there by surprise, taking a dog to the vet. I was absolutely humiliated, but I went through with it. The doctor told me I was severely obese and that I also had type 2 diabetes. He prescribed me insulin and said I had to drastically change my diet. Believe me, I tried. My husband watched over me like a hawk for the first few weeks, making sure I was adhering to my weight loss diet. Unfortunately, I hated every second of it, and the moment he was gone, I would order fast food, then try to hide the evidence. It didn't take long for my husband to discover that I had been cheating on my diet. He gave me an ultimatum, and that if he caught me cheating on my diet again, he would cheat on me. I didn't believe him. It almost made me want to get caught, to make him realize he was just a spineless liar. I made sure he saw the fast food bags in the trash can the next day, and seemingly just as I thought, for a few weeks, he didn't say or do anything. Then, one night, without a word, he didn't come home. When he returned in the morning, I accused him of cheating.
That's what she
To my
gets.
surprise, he didn't deny it at all. He gave me the name of the woman and the hotel they stayed in. I was floored, but then it only got worse when instead of apologizing, my husband said he wanted a divorce. On top of that, he told me that he was going on...
I hope nobody defends this woman, because he is right. He talked to her first, and she said, no, my guy, you're getting the conversation out of me. Let's talk business.
Vacation to Thailand without me for a month, and that if I didn't make significant changes by the time he got back, he would go through with the divorce. That news sent me into a panic. I knew I'd be hopelessly alone if he left me, while he could go off and have any woman he wants. Desperate, I went back to the doctor and asked him if there was anything he could give me to help. That's when he recommended OZEMPIC. I'd heard about it before, how celebrities were taking it and how there were a bunch of bad side effects, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. Not only was my marriage failing, but so was my body. I could feel it. I knew I was going to die early if something didn't change. I was at the end of my rope. That night, I sat with myself by my bedside table, staring at the syringe, trying to get myself to go through with the first dose.
I don't know how you turn OZEMPIC into a horror story.
You're gonna save me, right? You better. God damn it, that hurt! What's going on? What's happening to me? No! No!
I'm scared. I'm scared for the wrong reason. What will happen?
Hello, I'm back from my trip. Are you home?
Holy shit! What happened to you? You wanted this. You did this to me. No, I didn't want this. Listen, I think you need to go to the hospital. Something isn't right. Nothing's ever good enough for you, is it? I'm sorry I'm not one of your lady boys. I'm sorry I'm so disgusting.
Because he went to Thailand, I get it.
Look at me. Stop it. I'm just worried about your health. Look, I'm sorry I left you for so long, but let me help you with this. You need surgery or something. You need a doctor. You're gonna need a whole hospital when I'm done with you.
This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a woman who said she felt like she was slowly passing away after taking OZEMPIC. The woman has said, "To people using OZEMPIC for weight loss, do what you have to do, but it is a diabetes medicine. That's originally what it was used for. I took OZEMPIC for type 2 diabetes. Both my parents are diabetic and they recommended I talk to my doctor about using it. My doctor prescribed me OZEMPIC after we discussed my options. It helps to lower your blood sugar levels, and honestly, it works amazing for that. However, there were side effects. Some of these can be mild, like nausea. Another one is weight loss because it's an appetite suppressant. Later on, I found out that it can cause pain, pancreatitis, and a lot of other nasty side effects. I was okay for the first few doses, but then I started to feel sick each time I took OZEMPIC. Things just got worse and worse. I felt great for the first few months. Symptoms would last for days at a time, always after I had taken it. It got to the point where I would spend days throwing up and not able to hold anything in, feeling like I was dying from something that was supposed to help me live. Eventually, I had to admit to myself, although it
horrible cost.
Yeah, I'm done with that. I'm done. Yo, I'm scared for the wrong reason. I'm gonna give that an 8, okay? Better than the last ones. I'm taking a break from Friday Scary Stories because this was not what I expected, okay? We went from Airbnbs to a girl and her ex to Ozempic? Yeah, that's a wrap.